All right, guys, we're back for another episode of the REVIVECAST. We're going to take a little turn on this episode. We've been talking about, hormonal issues, but today we're actually going to dive into some clinical stuff. Who I have here with me today, he's a very important asset to the clinic and all the franchises. His name's Kameron Harris. So I'm going to let Cam kind of introduce himself, give us a little bit of his background, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper about HRT.
That's perfect. I've been with Dom. You guys have met Dom already if you've seen some of these videos. So Dom is the founder of Revive Therapy and Wellness. We've grown to about 15 clinics now, but I was back with Dom when we started the first one. So we're going on almost 4 years now. That was 2017, so I've been with him since day one. I actually started with him in a supplement store that he owned, which had nothing to do with his clinic. He just simply wanted to offer more things to his patients. So I started with a supplement shop, and I was just selling things out of there. And eventually he saw that I could sell, and he told me that, hey, if you bring people over to Revive and they do some blood work, get on HRT, whatever they do, I'll give you some commission on the back end for it.
So initially it was just, they had just had the clinic, and then they just had the supplement shop. You worked the supplement shop.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Then he saw your potential, obviously, with sales, which obviously is a part of this.
That's it.
And then brought you over into the clinic.
Sure.
And then when you brought you over, what was your starting position?
When I started over there, I was now a patient coordinator,
okay,
per se. I mean, back then we didn't really have titles to names, but that's what it was.
But you had, even when you started back then, it was like a tiny ass.
It's tiny. I mean, you're talking less than 2,000 square feet.
Yeah, until to what now? Like, I don't even know how big this place is.
20,000.
That's 20,000 square feet. Yeah. All right. So, and that's only 4 years, guys, that it's grown at that rate is kind of insane.
Sure.
So now, obviously, you've progressed in your career.
Sure.
You obviously you still deal with patients on a daily basis, but you haven't. Your title is different at this point. So what is it?
It's corporate director now. I mean, I've gone from being a patient coordinator to clinic director, where I was directing the clinic, overseeing everything that had to do with it, and now I've been able to train some people under me to take some of the responsibilities off of my back, so that I can now focus on the franchise's development as a whole.
Yeah, so obviously, because you guys have obviously with the franchising have created a system that obviously is successful because the franchises are literally popping up left and right.
Absolutely.
So it's, I don't want to say idiot proof, but you've made it in a sense, as long as they have passion for the business, they're going to be successed.
Oh, that's what the franchise is all about. I mean, why would you sign up for a franchise if they don't have the structure already put in place? So
yeah, and you're really kind of picky in a sense for who you bring on.
Absolutely.
With the franchise, right? Because you guys could very easily, just franchise and have 200 spots at this point in time, but the quality could be a lot less if you do it to that, right? And we're not just about quantity.
Exactly.
It's all about quality in every aspect with this. So Cam's obviously had a ton of experience, dealt with, I'm sure, multiple types of demographics, all size, shapes, and everything, age, everything. I'm sure that you guys have as young as like 20 is like 20 mid-20s, I would assume.
I mean, it really depends on the type of service we're using.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about HRT, we're really not going any younger than 30.
Yeah. But obviously with the vitamin therapy, supplements and stuff, obviously that's all demographic, right?
All around.
So what we're going to talk about today, guys, is we're going to mainly hone in on HRT, and we're going to keep this more specified. We'll get into some more in-depth stuff later episodes. But what we want to talk about today is more about kind of like the HRT, like myths surrounding it, also like common symptoms like Cam may see coming in here on a daily basis, and what he kind of deals with typically. And then we'll kind of touch on those and build off of that within the podcast. So let's start off with like when people come to you, what are some of the typical, common symptoms that they come to you with, that like, oh wow, this person more than likely needs HRT.
HRT. Okay. I mean, that's pretty simple. There's going to be a ton of different things that we can come up with here, but you're going to see most of the time they're coming in lethargic. So they're super tired. They're not really sure why. Most of them have a ton of things going on in their life, and they're dealing with a lot of stress. So many different, they have a couple different jobs. There's so many different things that they're doing, and they have all these issues that are starting to occur, sometimes out of nowhere and sometimes gradually over time. You may see that over time, they're starting to get more and more tired, less and less motivated. They're not sleeping as well. They're putting on some excess belly fat. They might not be thinking clearly. All of these things, loss of libido. I mean, all of these things can really trigger the thought that, hey, the hormones are starting to decline.
Yeah, and we can get to like more kind of gender specific with symptoms, right? Like with females, vaginal dryness
Hot flashes.
Hot flashes is another. In both sexes, low libido is going to occur here. So there's an array of symptoms, and then besides, like I like the thing with us is that you're not just treating a piece of paper, right? Like you can't just go. Of course, we do blood work, we do Dutch tests, and all that good stuff, but you can't just treat that piece of paper, right? Like, what have you seen as far as like correlation with like symptoms and like blood panels?
So it doesn't always connect.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the really big issues there, that you can't just treat a reference range, right? And a lot of times that's how it's done in today's society, and you can't do it just that way. You got to be treating exactly what they're looking for and offering a solution. And I think that's really what we pride ourselves in. Every person that walks through this door sits with a patient coordinator or myself or somebody to consult them and see what they're trying to accomplish, what brought them in, so that we can really offer them a solution. So it's really about giving them what they're looking for rather than trying to sell everything that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big key component is, I'll say the client or the patient relationship with the director or the coordinator, whoever they're dealing with. And because what I've seen, and I've dealt with a lot of HRT clinics in the past, is they basically kind of treat you like a number or a piece of paper, and they're not developing a relationship. And it's almost like they seem like they don't really care.
Yeah.
They're just about selling the product, and that's it. And we want to do it differently, right? We want it to be a good relationship, a healthy relationship, one that they can trust us with, because it is their health that's in our hands. And longevity is a big part of all this, right? The quality of life that we want to provide them. And then obviously quality of life, quality service. We got to give them both. So like I would say, would you say that customer relationships and stuff are like top priority?
I think that's the key component to all of this. Yeah. Businesses not focusing on the relationships built with their clientele or their patients, whatever you want to call it, depending on the business, they're setting themselves up to fail. I believe full-heartedly that a business is made up of its people, right? And those relationships are what's going to keep people around. I think that a lot of these businesses are so focused on bringing new people in, another number, another person through the door, that they forget to pay attention to everyone that's already there, and nurture that. Okay? And that's what's going to keep them there. The retention is key. And then your business is going to be set up to succeed. It's completely different.
Because like a scenario I've seen before with other clinics is a lot of them will do like subscriptions, right? To sell up. To me, it's like, okay, I'm buying a subscription, but that's not even including my HRT or whatever. But that's kind of like to reel you in. Like if you stop your HRT, forget about it, that money just keeps coming into them.
Sure.
Opposed to us, where we are just, obviously the money we make is literally just off the products that
the medication.
Yeah, the medication itself, nothing else. We don't make any extras. We don't force people into like certain, like you have to be with us an entire year or whatever. I mean, everybody has their timelines as far as like the protocols and stuff. But I think that separates us, is making sure that we put the client's well-being first, making sure that they're taken care of. And the patient coordinators here, it's almost like a 24/7 type deal. It's like, right? It is. You're always in contact with them. If they have a question, they're going to come to you. That's it. And another thing is also being able to provide them with answers and being honest. Like if for some reason we don't know an answer,
we'll find it out.
We'll find out, right? We don't just kind of like dodge it or kind of make believe that. I mean, for most part, most clients can tell if you're bullshitting them.
Sure.
Right? And then that's going to turn them off to like, okay, this guy's just full of it. Why do I need to work with him?
Sure.
Right. So, yeah, guys. So like the symptoms: weight gain, low libido, mood swings, vaginal dryness. I mean, there's a ton, and there can be interconnected ones depending on like the hormonal imbalance they're dealing with. And then on top of the symptoms, once we kind of run through the blood work, you see where things are at. You kind of put the protocol together within the client. The next step is actually educating them.
Absolutely.
Like, right. So you're giving the blood work that they give you. You have the patient either they're calling you or they're coming in person, and you're running through that. Every part of the blood panel, right?
Absolutely.
And you're basically explaining to them what is or is not going on, right?
Yep.
So within that, do you think like when you see their face, their reaction, or you hear they're like, wow, he actually cares. He's looking into this. He's not just, oh, here's the protocol we need to give you. Like this is the why. And we also are like we talked about in the beginning, like putting their health first and giving them what they need, Now, obviously, when it comes to this, there's all kinds of other stuff outside the HRT realm when it comes to vitamins and minerals and stuff, and we recommend those things, but it's not like you have to buy them, right? But the education is a big part of us. So, like, it's kind of like a scenario when someone comes to you, they did their blood work, you call them in, they sitting in front of you. So, what's kind of your process from there?
After they did the blood work already?
Yeah, and they're in the office with you, and they're coming down for their consult.
Sure. So when they came in for the blood work, just so you guys already know that we already built that relationship. So they came in already expressing what they were hoping to accomplish, what they've been experiencing. So we already kind of know a background of which route to take this to, right? Now, we don't know what the blood work says yet until we get it back, but then at least we have something to really think about while we're looking at the blood work, because this is what they're trying to achieve, right? So when they come back in, the first thing they do is they meet with a physician. So we have physicians on staff every day here. Yep. They will be seeing the patient to conduct a health screening, is what we like to call it, alongside of a blood work review. So they're already going down this blood work really extensively, just to basically help the patient understand what's going on and what we have that is going to fit their needs, and then also give them a solution for what's going on.
Yep.
Right? Then they would see someone like a patient coordinator. Okay. Now, patient coordinator is basically going to be a liaison to this type of patient. And from there, they will reiterate what the physician has already put together as far as a recommendation, and then connect with the patient on a relationship level.
Yep.
Okay. Listening to what they have to say, really explaining everything in full detail. And also, when it comes to the protocol, they're going to sit there and explain every little step, how long it's going to take for the patient to see a result, what we expect out of them as far as follow-up with blood work, how often they need to do a physical, when they'll be coming in so that we can do some education. All of these steps are explained fully to them, so they walk out feeling like they don't really have any questions. They're going to have some.
Sure.
I mean, that's a really big thing that happens all the time, because there's so much information that they're trying to soak in.
Yep.
And they almost always forget something that you told them, but at least you're getting it out there. Most of the stuff we write down on paper for them as far as like a game plan. So we pride ourselves in that. We really take the education piece to another level and have the process out there for them already, so they know what to expect.
And a key component there was setting realistic expectations within the client for the protocol, because you have some people's mindset is they're going to start taking their protocol and not that this can't happen, within like a week they're going to feel phenomenal.
Many times better.
Now, that does happen on occasion, depending. I would say it's more common in males than females for sure, because females just have so many more moving parts as opposed to a guy. So it's not to say it can't happen, but setting up that expectation is huge. Like mistakes being made in the past, because like as a coach, I've made plenty of mistakes. We all do. We learn from them, right?
Sure.
So have you seen that mistake being made initially, like way back 4 years ago, of like not giving them not that you didn't know, but you didn't let them know what the expectation could be, starting this protocol and rebalancing these hormones, like what could possibly happen, right? And I'm sure like the red flags or alarms started going off in their head when something happened that they weren't told about. And obviously, I'm sure that was a learning process for you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a learning process for everyone that walks in this door. There's so many things that may go on that we didn't expect. And that's something you learn over time, over repetition. And as long as you're learning from that, that's okay.
Right.
You guys know as well as I do, failure is a useful tool.
Yep.
You learn through those failures, and you put together a structure, a process that's going to make it better for the next time.
Yeah. So now the learning process, like going with the franchise and you doing that with the corporate level, is like telling them that's the part of the teaching now, right? It's like you need to give them their realistic expectation, what possibly could or could not happen, so they have that expectation. If it does happen, it's not a red flag and they're freaking out basically and like, oh, what the hell is going on with my body? I'm taking this to feel better, but now I'm having X, Y, and Z happen to me, right? So when you're starting HRT, guys, like I said, it can happen and you're like, everything's great, copacetic, feeling phenomenal, but then there's that kind of what we call a transition period to if you had high estrogen, low estrogen, low testosterone, whatever the case may be, and you're optimizing those levels and bringing them back up, put in a scenario that your body hasn't been producing that for a long time. So now it's got to adjust to those new levels coming in. And there's just that transition. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. That's normal, but understand that can happen, right? So moving on from there, what have you seen or heard, even being in the clinic for so long, of some kind of common myths that are out there that are associated with HRT? Because obviously everybody gets on Dr. Google and will Google something and pull whatever randomness comes up and just think that like that's the be all end all truth, when we know for a medical fact, in a sense, based on literature and research and everything that we've been doing, that's just not true. So what have you kind of commonly seen as like myths, quote unquote?
So I think the problem there is that there's so much information out there,
right?
And they don't really know which one to pull pieces from, which one's right, why that issue actually occurred. And I think that what people will come to realize if they really actually do it, for one, and then for two, research the right way, they can see that most of those issues come with doing things improperly.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So, I mean, that's the biggest thing there. When you have everything balanced and it's being done correctly, you're monitored by a physician, everything's where it should be, you don't see those issues. You know? Let's take a male, for example, when they're coming in and they talk about all kinds of things that males can run into. Prostate cancer is a big one.
Yep.
Right. So they go straight to that all the time.
Sure.
Given testosterone's nature, we just talked about this earlier, actually. Testosterone is not going to be something that really causes prostate cancer, right? Testosterone can enlarge a cell. We're not causing cellular proliferation. We're not mutating the cell. And then from the science of it, actually, you're shutting down a natural production, which is something that would feed into those prostate issues, right? So it's kind of the opposite. I mean, when you go to someone like a female, and the females think, hey, this is going to cause cancer as well. They go straight to cancer, right? These are big myths from the get-go. And I wouldn't say myth right away with cancer because when it comes to hormone replacement, there's different forms of hormone replacement. And the ones that they're accustomed to are the ones that have caused really big scares. Right? So back in the day, females started with synthetic hormone replacement. So the synthetic estrogen, progestin, which is a synthetic form of progesterone. These are things that could potentially exacerbate a cancer issue. And over time, most clinics, especially ours, and then if you see other clinics like ours, they following suit, they've switched to something called bioidentical hormone treatment. So for females, bioidentical, all that means is that it's a natural form of hormones. It's derived from plants, nothing synthetic, modified, or changed. It's the exact replica of the hormone that's supposed to be in the body, right? Since the switch to that, there's been no link to any of those cancerous issues. None.
Yeah, and that's the thing with cancers, guys. So obviously we're trying to prevent growth of cancer, right? When you're taking hormones. So like what Kam was talking about with the testosterone, like and it's suppressing your natural testosterone production. So like if you have like higher androgen levels, like naturally, right? Like I don't want to get too scientific here, but basically let's think about carbs. Like a carb molecule in a sense, like sugars in themselves, they can feed cancers, right? So that's why you hear a lot of things when people are on cancer, they go keto or whatever, lower carb, because that can feed the cancer. So basically that's attaching to the cell, that's not happening because we're not increasing androgen levels within the cell. Like we're basically shutting that down and we're replacing it, not bioidentical hormones instead. So your natural production is decreasing because that's just a natural process when you're injecting testosterone, and you're not increasing that natural production, which could feed the cancer, right? And there's plenty of research on this, guys. You can just look at prostate, BPH, and cancer, and there'll be tons of studies that will show up. So like within that common myth, so to speak, has there anything else that's kind of like comes to your mind that's typically seen? I know I would see a lot more with females being kind of scared of HRT than guys. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that rightfully so, because those females did run into those issues back in the day.
But we also, I would say, go with like the least effective dose, right? Because a lot of people are prescribing way too much, way too soon, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the problem with like things like the pellet, which we don't agree with, because it's like you're guessing on where those levels go to, but if for some reason your estimation was off, you invasively put a pellet in there, your levels go up way high. It's not like you can just automatically adjust that dose.
You can't.
Right?
You cannot take out the pellets. That's the biggest thing there.
Right? So then you're like waiting for the 3 months or whatever it is for them to dissolve. And then you have to, this is why we're always about doing the most efficient manner and optimal manner for hormone optimization. And by far injections and or oral, depending on the hormone you're trying to take, is a better route, because it's 6 weeks. Like as soon as they start their protocol, right? It's a 6 week, we're checking up, see where things are, and adjust as needed, correct?
This is just to make sure we're on the right path.
Yeah.
We're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. So we're always fine tuning if needed. Sometimes we'll hit it out of the park first time we go around, and then sometimes you have to adjust, right? I would say more often than not, there's a greater percentage of success the first time around as there is having to adjust a lot moving forward, right?
The majority of the time.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of, I'm not bashing anybody here, guys, but this is what we've seen becoming a little bit more common, I see it in my coaching field all the time, is I wouldn't say it's the doctor's fault in itself. They're just not educated in the field enough. So, they're kind of scaring people away from HRT in a sense, because their kind of thought process is that, like, if people come in with symptoms, right? Or if they give them a blood work panel and things are just kind of in range, so to speak, and they're like, oh, well, everything's in range, or good, yet they're not treating the patient, meaning that, this, like we talked about earlier, the symptoms they may be having. If they have low libido, if they can't sleep, if they have headaches, if they're dealing with mood swings, they almost make the patient feel as if it's in their head, right? So when you kind of see that, like I said, I don't want to bash the medical field, because I know a lot of good doctors out there. We have some on our staff, but it's just to educate you guys that if you run into this situation, don't think that, it's in your head. You feel what you feel, right? And that's with us telling you that we treat the patient and the panels, not separately, so to speak.
So the best thing to take away from that, honestly, and we run into this all the time. So this is an issue we run into daily. Or it's not even an issue because we handle it correctly.
Yeah,
but
correct.
The physicians, they're amazing. But what their job is to do is to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Right. So they run down your basic hormone panel, not even a hormone panel, your basic like CBC, CMP, lipids, the basic stuff that just tells them you're healthy enough to walk out the door.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what they're taught to do. They didn't grow up in they didn't go up in a medical field that had to do with hormones. They didn't really learn that, So, and they're not there to optimize you either. That's not what their job is. They're just here to make sure that you can walk out that door healthily.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really the only big thing there. And then also, they have only seen the bad when it comes to hormone replacement, right? And that's simply because there's been millions of times where it's done incorrectly. So they're dealing with their patients that are coming in to show them all of these issues that they're having because of this medication that they're taking and because of this steroid that they're taking. And they have to deal with that. So they've seen all the bad things because it was done improperly. And so now they already have this stigma that hormone replacement is bad.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of like what we're trying to undo here in a sense, right?
Sure.
Is get rid of that stigma of HRT is bad. Everything is always context driven, guys. Like there's never good versus bad. Is like, was it done the right way? And as Cam touched on, like with physician, they're not about optimizing. Like that is like what we specialize in, is making you basically, like if you're 40, trying to make you feel like you were 20, 25.
Sure. Right.
We're trying to turn back the clock as far as like blood work and the quality of the life that you're living, and just make you feel better. Now, also take away this is HRT, guys. Now, obviously you'll see a lot of stuff in the fitness and health industry, and people are taking super physiological doses of some of these substances. That is not us by any means. So is, this stuff going to grow tons of muscle tissue and get you ripped abs? No. Will it make that process more efficient? 100%. But there's also other components that go to that, because I'm sure you've seen people come in for HRT and they do just have this misconceived notion that they're going to take these and all of a sudden they'll just metamorphosize their physique and have this phenomenal beach body in no time, when unfortunately that's just not the truth. Obviously there's the lifestyle component, nutritional component, and taking care of yourself outside of just taking your hormones. I mean, do you run into that a lot?
I mean, all the time. That just goes back to the managed expectations. As soon as we sit down and we start going through a protocol or a program, right from the get-go, you have to help them understand that, hey, this is not something that's going to be this magic pill or this saving grace for you. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to feel a million times better. And then if you're doing the things you're supposed to do and controlling the variables that you can control, because I can't go home to you hold your hand, then you're going to get the results you want, of course.
Yeah, it's responsibility on both ends.
Sure.
Right? The patient coordinator, the physician have their responsibilities. The patient themselves have their responsibilities. And when both parties are taking responsibility for what they're supposed to be doing, amazing things can happen.
Absolutely.
Now, I've seen some amazing transformations when people were placed on HRT and then they nailed everything else on top of that. Like, you can make some crazy changes, but it's just not the be all end all where that's going to solve everything.
Sure.
It can keep you from digging yourself into a deeper hole, but at the same time, guys, if you're still not optimizing nutrition, rest, sleep, and managing your stress, then it's always going to kind of be an uphill battle. The HRT is just going to help you from basically getting too off kilter or digging yourself in too much of a hole to come back out of. So, again, on the podcast here, we always want to create some realistic expectations for you guys. Does anything else kind of stand out to you as far as like commonalities when you're seeing with patients coming in? Like if do they have common questions when they come to you about HRT? Are they kind of like 50-50 on they want it, they don't want it? Like what do you typically see?
I think the biggest question that comes about is going to be, do I have to do this forever?
Yes.
That's
a good one.
100% the most common thing that I hear. And the end all be all there is honestly, as long as you want to feel as good as you will when the hormones are present, it's going to be something you continue.
Yep.
The bottom line is that as you age, the hormones decline. And it's not just with aging. I mean, there's so many different life events that cause this to happen much sooner, whether it's trauma or whether it's pregnancies, you name it. But the bottom line is that they don't repair themselves. They don't come back to normal.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You can do it through nutrition and lifestyle and really start to repair it, but it comes to a point of where it's too far gone.
Yep.
Now at this point, for you to feel normal or for you to optimize to the fullest extent, it's going to be something you have to continue.
Yep.
So if you explain it in a way that's proper so they understand that, they'll see exactly how they feel when everything is optimized, and they're not going to want to stop.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a huge component because, I mean, I get that even with supplementations, I need to stay on this forever. Well, it's like, it's a yes and no. Like some people, like if they come to you for fertility, obviously that's a completely different scenario. Sure. It's not a forever type thing, but when it's just pure HRT hormone replacement therapy, like for myself, for example, I was put on HRT around 30, 31 years old because all of a sudden I dropped all this weight. I started feeling lousy, no energy, low libido. And I got tested and my testosterone levels were like 160 total. And guys, they should be much higher than that. Typically you want like 700 or 800 minimum. And I had no free testosterone. So it's like, wow. And then that's just, especially at 30, being a guy, my training, everything I was doing, I was just too far gone. There's no way I can naturally bring that back up. I could have tried, and you're just like prolonging things and you're just going to feel worse for much longer and it may never come back. So I was put on it, and then, I'm been phenomenal ever since. There's other scenarios to where like females, and I've gotten clients to where they have lost their cycle. And it was due to a combination like birth control, coming off their birth control, just overall lifestyle stress, under eating, overworking for extreme long periods of time. And they just shut down, and we tried to get it back naturally over months and nothing happened.
Sure.
And then they came back. It's like, okay, HRT is the next step. Put them on HRT, month or two, phenomenal. They just feel off the charts good. And it's kind of eye-opening to them as well. And this is everybody from extreme cases being like a 25-year-old. And again, guys, we test all these things, and then we're not just putting a 25-year-old on this. But we've also done it in a sense to where for females, losing their cycle is very common nowadays, unfortunately. And we can help kickstart that back. But that's a scenario to where you may not need to be on hormones forever. You kickstart the natural production. You do what you're supposed to be doing as far as lifestyle, stress, nutrition, and then you're good to go. We've had a few of those patients as well. So it's never black and white.
Right.
The thing with us, we're always going to assess, like Cam's always going to get very thorough with your blood work, get into your lifestyle, what you're doing, what you've been doing, what you've not been doing. And he's going to put the best plan together to help optimize you internally as much as possible.
That's
right. So anything else you want to talk about before we end this segment? Now, again, guys, we will have Cam back on, and we will get a lot more in depth on more specific topics. I just wanted to bring Cam in because he's a huge part of the company. And he's just doing so much good. Trust me, you don't see this guy's like working 24/7. It's closed on Thursdays. He's here. It's closed on Sundays. He's here. He's just here 9 o'clock at night. He's just constantly working. Because he has a passion for this, number one. So it's not like he's hating his job. He's working his ass off because he loves it. And he's just a hard worker, but he's doing so good to what's happening in this culture we're trying to create. I couldn't be happier to be a part of the team and be side by side with this man, because he's taught me a lot as well. And that's the thing, is we're building relationships within this, and we're trying to help each other. It's not an individual thing, right? We're always trying to build each other's up. If we can help one another, we're going to help one another. So when you come to us, you're always going to get kind of like a team effort in a sense.
Absolutely.
If one of us don't know, we're going to reach out to somebody else, and so on and so forth. So guys, thank you again for being part of the REVIVECAST. This is your point, Kam. Like, tell them like Instagram, any way they can get a hold of you. Like, what's the best options here for you?
Yeah, we can do that. I'm on Instagram, so that's Kameron with a K, Kameron as in Nancy, Blake, Blake. That's really the only platform that I spend most of my time on. I guess we'll start getting on YouTube.
We're trying to get him a little bit more, folks. He's we're trying to get him into that social media world. It's
a useful tool. You know, I just haven't really spent much time on it. Just like you said, man, I've been focusing most of my attention on this. You know, so. But
now too, like we're expanding and doing the telehealth side, right? And now telehealth combined with the franchises coming out. So like that's a big thing, especially the telehealth. So when I say telehealth, guys, it means you don't have to be a resident here, like in Florida or in Stewart, where we're at, to be able for us to help you. It doesn't matter where you're at in the States, we can help you. So if you need to contact us. We can put things in motion. And obviously they can just call the clinic, I'm assuming, to get things set up for telehealth. Obviously you can email Kam. You can even email me. All the links will obviously be in the notes section for you guys to get a hold of us. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below or message myself, message Kam.
Perfect.
Guys, also, if you could, give us a 5-star rating, give us a positive review, subscribe to the channel. That always helps us out. We want to thank Kam again for being on, giving up some of his busy time to be with us. And we will definitely have him back on.